Does your kid always approach her or his mother for everything and approach his father only to ask, where is the mother? Hello and welcome to the Best for Him podcast, where we talk about things that are related to men and relevant for men. This is your host, Bhavna from Best for Him Studios. In the new age, where both parents are working, there's definitely need to share the responsibilities of kids at every age. Starting from upbringing a toddler to feeding them, sharing and maintaining a good and close bond with teenagers and then being companion when they start their own life. For all this, fathers need to be equally involved as much as mothers. However, probably not always, but at times, fathers lack in nurturing their kids or building up and close bond with their kids. But this is not impossible. Fathers can become the first helping hand or a problem solver for their kids, says our today's guest, who is a parenting expert and coach. Today we have Mr. Sushant Kalra, Director of Parvarish Institute of Parenting. Welcome to the show today. How are you, Mr. Kalra?
Good, yeah, thanks.
First, I would like to ask you, why raising a child is always associated with mothers and not fathers? How can this mindset really change?
Bhavna, there are multiple ways of answering that question. So, one, I feel that this, at a certain level, this question is slightly incorrect. We start rating men and women on this parameter of parenting and nurturing children. But actually there is nothing to do with men and women. Okay, these are traits. We normally collapse traits and gender. Nurturing is a feminine trait and nothing to do with your gender. Let me say that again. So, nurturing is a feminine trait. We all, you and I and all human beings, whether they are male or female, have all kind of traits. There are feminine traits and these are masculine traits. Traits are defined just by seeing what is towards nurturing and towards softness, and anything which is stronger and harsh and needs more strength are normally termed as masculine traits. What we have done over decades and centuries, we've collapsed traits with gender. And that what makes that question in a way correct, that men are not good at nurturing or at parenting. It's actually a feminine trait, and you and I as a father, I as a male, have those traits. Now what happens is the traits which get nurtured, which get focused, develop. And the traits which do not get focused and which do not get nurtured over a period of time do not get focused, so they are not developed well. So if you look at history of mankind, men are normally nurtured for their strengths, for their going out there in the world, earning financially, fighting it out for a family. And traditionally the role of a female is the one who's nurturing at home, taking care of the family, taking care of children, reproducing, delivering children. So over those many years, the trait has gotten nurtured like that. And coming to the second part is that parenting is never learnt, right? We all look at parenting as a natural process. Being a parent is natural, reproduction is natural. Parenting is not, because parenting over the years has evolved. How our forefathers used to parent or our families used to parent is very different from the parenting today. So it has evolved over a period of time. Human beings have evolved. Children have evolved. It's not the same child who was born in 1900s who's now born in 2020s. Very different, very evolved human beings. Same things don't work. So parenting is a very evolved, researched science in itself, which normally people do not learn or do not have an inclination to learn. So now if you combine what I said earlier, that few traits get nurtured in a female and a few other traits get nurtured in a male, and over centuries it's been the female who's been nurturing the who's been developing the traits of nurturing and taking care of people and emotional and being softer. Men, therefore, by default, take the other role. And because we are not learning this art, it ends up being a women's job or a mother's job. And fathers and men start to distance themselves and also start to think about themselves that this is something which they can't do, this is something which doesn't come naturally, this is something which is not a part of their role.
I think you have put it very well for our listeners, but please tell us that how can fathers play a role in nurturing their kids considering they lack emotional bond and they are primarily seen as financial support in the family?
There can be two ways of answering this question again. One is very tip-based, do this, do that, do this, do that. But in the world of parenting, in the world of humans, in the world of human psychology, counseling, tips don't work. Every human is different, every man is different. So there is no one size fit all kind of answer to this question. So we need to understand this deeply. So there are a couple of myths in the world of nurturing children, in the world of child development and also human behavior. So the first myth is that parenting takes a lot of time. We need more time to become better parents. We need to spend more time with our children if we want to become better parents or make them a better person. So that is a critical element which needs to be broken first. Because if you really look at it, because traditionally and even till today, men are expected to earn for their family. They are the ones who are involved in the financial aspects of it more, running the family. So they spend most of their time in their professions. Women too are looking at their professions. They are also looking at how they can also bring in financial stability and income and home. But it's still like a secondary thing for most families that a man has to work, a woman has an option. So the option of spending more time with a child is more available with a woman than a man. And that's why people think here a woman is more apt to do this work, she has more time. So first we'll have to break this myth that parenting is not dependent on spending more time with your child. And let me take an example to prove to you that what I'm saying is right, is because if good parenting was a matter of spending more time with your child, then housewives who are spending most of their time with children, spending a lot of time taking care of their children, spending a lot of time taking care of their needs, there should not be too many problems in those households. But the situation is not like that. The issues parents are facing currently, be it excessive screen usage or not wanting to studies or health issues or eating habits or behavior or being on social media too much of time, all of that are being faced across families irrespective of whether the woman is working or not. So it's not a matter of time. So we need to see what is the factor which leads to good parenting and learn that. So what I've been talking about and I am propagating is that we need to learn this art of parenting. It doesn't not come naturally. Every human being is different, right? The way you think and the way maybe your sibling, even that sibling could be a twin, the way they think, how every second person tastes something, their thoughts, their feelings, their actions, their emotions, everything is unique. If I say something to 10 people in a room, every person will have a different experience of that same thing. So we need to understand first thing that every human being is unique. So every child is unique. You cannot do parenting in one particular way. What happens is that all parents, if you really ask me, how do we learn parenting? Whether it is a man or a woman, we learn parenting by our experience, by what happened to us when we were a child, how our parents behaved, how my dad behaved, how my mom behaved, what worked for me and what did work for me. So over a period of time, what I begin to learn is that things which worked for me, which my dad did, which my mom did, which my elders did, I like it and I say this is great, this is good. Things which they did and I didn't like and didn't work for me, I say I will take them off my system of parenting. So by the time, and I'll take this example from a point of view of a man. So we are all learning from our parents, our fathers. So the way our fathers behaved, things which worked for us, things which were good, which we liked, we keep it. Things which we didn't like, which didn't work for us, we didn't enjoy it, we hated it, we took it out of our system. So by the time I, as a father, became a father, I had a perfect template of how a father should be ready with me. We need to know that my child is not me. My child is a very different human being, born in a very different era, with different thoughts, feelings, and evolution. So can my best fit be somebody else's best fit? The answer is no. So I need to understand what is my child's best fit. That is what the main role of parenting is all about. Not in the doing of what I'm doing, but actually understanding the child. Once you understand what is the best fit for your child, then parenting becomes very, very easy. Expecting them to follow what you follow is the biggest pitfall every father or every mother makes.
Absolutely, absolutely. At least I can relate to your perspective. But what are the basic things that fathers can do to, come closer to their kids?
Um, so a few things, if you really look at any household, the communication between, especially a father, a male, and the child is on actions and results. I'll take a few examples. What happened at school today? How was your exam? How was your marks? How much did you score? How did you fare in your chess tournament or your cricket tournament? It's all about interactions which are transactional. We as men are not even trained or coached or even think that we can do any other conversation, because that doesn't come naturally to us, because that's not what got nurtured in our system. Not in this generation, but from generations and generations. So what I would suggest to parents, to men specifically at this point of time, is when you come back home, when you talk to your child, start focusing on sharing your day. Sharing what did you go through? How was your day? Not in terms of what you did, not in terms of what you achieved, not in terms of performance, not in terms of what your achievements are, but more towards how was your experience of the day? Like when you went to the office, how are you feeling? When you met with somebody, when you had a great time, when you had great results, when you didn't have great results, when you had an altercation, like how was your day and what was your experience of the day? And ask the child about that experience itself. So that's one. Second biggest pitfall in these communications we do is that we want to fix everything. So for example, if a child says that I wasn't happy, I became angry at my teacher, I was sad about it, this was boring. So whenever we have something like this coming from our child, our first instinct is to fix it. How can I take him out of his boredom? How can I not make him sad, or I have to make him happy? We need to refrain from that. Let me say that again. We need to refrain from that. Rather than focusing on fixing the issue, we need to focus on how the child was feeling so that we can acknowledge and talk about the feelings more. Do we need to fix it? Maybe, maybe not. But that would come later. What needs to be addressed at the first point of time is communicating our experiences, communicating our feelings, acknowledging them, and being present to each other's experience and feelings. So these are two things which I would suggest to men in the world out there, fathers in the world out there.
It's a great information for our listeners. Thank you so much. But, when fathers deal with their kids, we have seen their strict approach and anger mode switches on altogether. Could you please give some tips that how should a father behave when they're around their kids or when they are not listening to, what father is saying?
So before answering this question, let's get to the genesis of why does this happen first, okay? And why am I taking this route again and again by first going deeper into why something is happening, why do we behave in a particular way? Is because once we understand the why behind it, the answers become much, much easier and clearer for us to understand and to implement. So we think for good parenting, there has to be a mix of something which is very often repeated as a good cop and a bad cop. Somebody who sympathizes with you, somebody who loves you, and somebody who is a stricter parent who makes sure that you do the right thing at the right time. So traditionally, again, the role of getting it done the right way, the right time, and being a stricter one comes to a man, because we relate to man as masculine, and that's where the strength comes from. And the other role of being a nurturer and of being sympathetic and listening and being loving and the softer sides of it, that role mostly gets taken by the woman of the house. I'm saying mostly because there are times when it's the other way around, which actually goes to prove that it's nothing to do with your gender. It's stereotyping what we think is the best role. So men have traditionally taken a role of being the strict one. So the myth to be broken here is that we don't need this carrot and stick approach for good parenting, for making children do something which we want them to do, or they being responsible in their life. That's one of the biggest myths. This really doesn't work. Why? One, because once you are getting strict, or once you are ordering and you are making sure that the child listens to you, you're actually creating dependence versus independence. They start doing stuff because you are wanting them to do that, not because they want to do it. So in a very subtle way, when you say listen to me, you're actually making them dependent on your decision making skills versus nurturing their own decision making skills. So we need to train ourselves and our children on how they can make the best decisions for their life. Will they falter a few times? Sure they would. But can we train them how to do it versus telling them, giving them instructions and giving them our decisions? So we need to take, just to summarize what I just said, we need to put into two things: the carrot and stick approach and the good cop and the bad cop approach really doesn't work. Both the parents can be a huge support structure, a stand for their child, and there is no need for one of them to be the softer one and one of them to be the harder one, to make sure things are balanced. We don't need to take roles individually. What we need to do is have a lot of love, empathy, care, experiencing it and expressing it, and at the same time being very focused on your issues, very focused on delivery, very focused on making your child responsible. Both of them can coexist and have a very beautiful relationship with your child.
I think it's a very good approach to adopt, and it will be helpful for our listeners. But there is a very realistic thing that fathers are considered closer to their daughters. But how can fathers build a beautiful bond with their sons?
Again, what you're talking about is very, again, traditional, and most of the time that's what exactly happens. Most of the time. So, first thing, one role of the masculine role, which naturally we have, as I said again, collapsed with being a male, and a male of the family takes it on, is the role of being a protector. It's been ages since the time we propagate that women are a weaker sex and the men is a stronger sex. And I'm talking about not mentally, not emotionally, but physically. So the role of men protecting a woman makes it a natural choice. So when you see your daughter, your first instinct is to protect, to make sure nothing happens, to make sure that she's good. So that role automatically gets taken by the father, and you start protecting your child. The way you will reprimand a girl child on a mistake versus the way you will reprimand a boy child will be very, very different, because it will come that, okay, women are softer, so I have to deal with softness, and men are stronger, I can do whatever with them. That leads to a very different approach taken by fathers for their daughters, and a very different approach taken by fathers for their sons. which leads to a very different relationship. So when you're harsher to your son, you're straight, you can be okay with their falling and not okay with your daughter falling. Automatically, you start building a very different relationship, a very different connect with your daughter versus your son. And son has always looked at, he does not treat me the same way he treats my sister. And that's what's been traditionally happening. But having said that, Bhavna, there are other ways around when we see that happening with ourselves. So if we have gone through a process where same thing was happening to me, the chances are I may take a completely different approach with my own child. Or I may take the same approach with my own child depending on what worked for me. So if my father was harsh with me and I liked it, then I would say it's fine and that's the way it should be. And if I didn't like that, then I would try and do it the other way around with my child. So it's not just, as I said, one size fits all. Humans behave very, very differently. Humans have a very different interaction and very different reaction to whatever happens to them. So there is not one answer to the question, but I wanted to give you different perspectives so that you can listen to this and understand from how is it happening at your place, at your end, in your household. So coming to the second part of the question where you said, how can parents improve their relationship with the son? The first thing which I said in the first, when you asked me the first question was, first of all, we need to de-link our traits from our gender. Every female in the world has both feminine and masculine traits. Every male has female and masculine traits. It has nothing to do with their gender. So can we start delinking it and nurture both in both? So for example, in a boy child, you're nurturing the feminine traits of love, care, affection, softness, and nurturing the masculine traits too. Similarly, in a girl child, we are nurturing both. We are nurturing their strengths in terms of being strong mentally, emotionally, physically, their ability to take on pain, their ability to take on emotional stress, and being on the nurturing side. That would be a great plus to start with as a context. And then expose both the boy and the girl to similar stuff in life. So have the same kind of an exposure to both and you will see them thriving far, far, far more. So treat both of them equal. Nurture both the traits. And once the father starts getting involved in parenting, which is a great miss in our society, not in our society, across the world actually. The women, the girls in our household, because of naturally the fathers bringing in the masculine traits, will automatically start to get nurtured. So men in the next generation, our sons in the next generation, would be far more empathetic, far more loving, caring, and understanding than our forefathers. Let's hope we reach out to more parents and more fathers through these communications.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kalra, for being with us and sharing all the great insights for our currently, existing dads and upcoming dads. And thank you to our listeners. Before we sum up our show, please give us rating if you're listening us on Spotify or any other platform. It will help like-minded people to find us easily. And for more updates, please like us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. And stay tuned. Until then, bye-bye and take care.